Across front 8 inches below HPS, measure 8 inches down from HPS, across front from armhole seam to armhole seam. Sweep mid-band rib, relaxed. Measure straight across at the center of rib band side to side. Sweep mid-band rib, extended. Measure straight across the center of rib band side to side, fully extended. Shoulder slope, measure from the imaginary line down to the shoulder armhole point. Across front 8 inches below HPS, measure 8 inches down from HPS across front from armhole seam to armhole seam. Front length HPS. Measure from HPS straight down to the bottom edge of the garment. Include rib trim band if applicable. Armhole circumference. Measure along the contour of armhole seam from the bottom of the armhole to the top of the armhole. Front raglan seam. Measure from neckline to bottom of the armhole at side seam, following the contour of the seam. Upper arm, muscle, 1 inch below AH. Measure 1 inch below armhole, side seam intersection, straight across the sleeve perpendicular, 90 degrees angle, to the fold of the sleeve. Forearm. Measure X. Inch up from sleeve opening, straight across the sleeve perpendicular, 90 degree angle, to the fold of the sleeve. Sleeve opening, relaxed. Measure from edge to edge along bottom of the sleeve opening. Sleeve cuff height, measure from the join seam to the bottom edge. Bottom rib/band height. Measure from the join seam to the bottom edge of the rib band. Sweep straight. Measure straight across garment from edge to edge at bottom, above the slits. Across shoulder. Measure at highest point of armhole, straight across from seam to seam. Across back 8 inches below HPS. Measure 8 inches down from HPS across back from armhole seam to armhole seam. Back length CBN. Measure from center back neck seam straight down to the bottom edge of the garment. Waist relaxed, 24 inches below HPS. Measure 24 inches down from HPS, then across from edge to edge. Back raglan seam. Measure from neckline to bottom of armhole at side seam, following the contour of the seam. Sleeve length CBN. Set in sleeves. Measure from center back neck at seam to shoulder point, pivot, and continue along the outside fold of sleeve to the bottom of the sleeve cuff. Raglan sleeves. Measure from center back neck straight to the sleeve fold, pivot, and continue to the bottom of the sleeved cuff. Collar length at seam. Measure along the collar, join seam from end to end, following contour of the collar. Collar height. Measure at the center back of the collar, join seam to the top edge of the collar. Collar point. Measure from collar point to set seam, collar, along the edge of collar. Back neck width, seam to seam. Measure at the natural shoulder line, at the collar/rib join seam, or neckline edge if there is no collar rib, straight across to the opposite seam. Front neck drop to seam. Measure down from center of imaginary line between the HPS to the join seam at center front. Back neck drop. Measure down from center of imaginary line between the HPS to the join seam at center back. Pocket placement from CF. Measure across from center front to the top corner of the pocket. Pocket placement from HPS. Measure straight down from HPS to the top edge of the pocket. If the pocket has a flap, measure to the flap edge. Pocket height. Measure at the center of the pocket from the top edge to the lowest point. Pocket width. At opening, measure across the pocket from edge to edge at opening. Pocket flap height. Measure from the top edge of the flap at center straight down to bottom edge. Pocket flap width. Measure along top edge of flap from edge to edge. Hood height at opening. Measure the length from the neck joining seam at neck to the top of the hood along the opening. Hood width at widest point. Measure at the widest point, measure across from the front opening to the center back. Breast welt width. Measure opening of the welt from side to side. Breast welt height. Measure from top of welt to the bottom of the welt. Kangaroo pocket width at top. Measure along the top of pocket from edge to edge. Kangaroo pocket width. At bottom, measure along the bottom of pocket from edge to edge. Kangaroo pocket height at center. Measure at the center of the pocket from the top edge to the bottom edge. Kangaroo pocket opening on straight. Measure from top of pocket opening to bottom of pocket opening. Draw cord length. Measure from one end of the draw cord to the other end.